As we scroll, post, like, swipe through modern India, this session turns the lens back to us, our habits, our humor, and the memes that mirror who we've become. The conversation also dives into how the world of digital creators and influencers is rapidly evolving, from overexposure and algorithm fatigue to the rise of AI-driven personas. How do we stay authentic when everything around us is curated? To explore these questions, we have a stellar panel that sits right at the intersection of technology, culture, and storytelling. Our first guest is a pioneer voice in India's digital media revolution, a multi-award-winning influencer, entrepreneur, TV host, author, and she turned her blog, MissMalini.com, into a full-fledged entertainment brand covering Bollywood, fashion, and lifestyle. She's also the founder of Girl Tribe by Miss Malini, a digital community empowering women through dialogue and support. And now has started a new journey with her company, If Idea Factory. Please join me in welcoming our very own Miss Malini, Malini Agarwal. Joining her is someone who has spent 4 decades decoding how brands and culture shape each other. Formerly the president of McCain Erickson India and CEO of Future Brands, he now leads Think9 Consumer Technologies, helping startups grow through deep cultural insight. He's also a celebrated columnist. His City City Bang Bang column in the Times of India has run over 2 decades. Please welcome Santosh Desai. And to steer this conversation, we have one of India's most loved radio hosts, an award-winning broadcaster, podcaster, and moderator. He has been a familiar and welcoming voice at almost every edition of Literature Live. He is the national brand head at Radio 1 Network and the client solutions head at HT Media Radio Business. Please welcome the voice behind Good Morning with Hrishi K at 94.3 Radio 1, our chair, Hrishi K. And now, for the moment we are here, to launch the book, I'd like to call upon the programming director of Literature Live, Antoine. I request the panel to come on the red cross, please.
Yeah, the red cross.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reasonably robust house, and considering none of us is called Shashi Tharoor, it's quite a surprise. I'm just very thrilled to be able to moderate this, also because I've read both their books cover to cover. Under the Influence is Malini's book. It's an extraordinary book. I highly advocate all of you go and get it. And of course now Memes for Mummyji, which is Santosh's book, is out. So get onto all online as well as on-ground stores and get it, because I had the privilege of having an advanced copy, and I've again read it cover to cover, and absolutely enthralling. What's important about having these two on a panel together is because when we talk or we reflect on the theme, which is reeling us in, pun intended completely on the word reel, reeling us in, you got to hit different to slay. We know that Santosh is going to give us the cultural sociological lens, and Malini is going to give us the first-hand creator influencer lens. So with that brief introduction, I'm just going to dive straight in. Malini, you've lived through the evolution of digital influence. I mean, you're really You're too young and beautiful to be called the mother of digital media and influencers in this country. But in effect, you are. I mean, there's a whole generation that adores you for what you've done. From blogging to Instagram to Reels, you've seen it all. How has the definition of an influencer changed since you started?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And Hrishi and I go way back. We used to have a radio show together called Overdrive some millions of centuries ago. I think that the word influencer, I think now is kind of a bad word in some circles. You know, just like feminism is wrought with a lot of complexity. I think that the word influencer changed from the idea that your average girl or guy next door was helping you make choices that felt out of your reach and too condescending when it came from a fancy glossy magazine. It was aspirational but achievable. But now it's a lot more complicated because it's become a full industry. I remember seeing a really cool meme actually ages ago where it says, you know, influencer isn't always a good thing because when you're under the influence, you could be driving drunk, or when you have influenza, you might be ill. So when people come to your social media feed, you have to think about, do they feel better or worse when they leave? Just like any kind of illness. And I actually now, I'm actually working on my third book. First time I'm talking about this. It's called Unsocialize Me because I think we made a huge mistake with how we use social media. And I admit I'm part of the problem, but I'm trying to fix it. I feel that the really important thing to do on social media is in the name itself. Be social, which is what we don't do, and we'll probably unpack that later. But I think the influencer journey has been far and wide, and I think content creators have added so much value and entertainment and joy to people's lives, but they've also created FOMO and anxiety, and my life is not good enough. So it's a little bit of both. It's bittersweet.
You know, what I also loved about book number 2, now that she's revealed there is a book number 3, is that there's a fair amount of social media etiquette. And she actually uses her own life examples, and she says, these are things that I got wrong. And very rarely do you see an author saying that in a book for public consumption, saying, these are things I got wrong, and I don't want you to get them wrong, so maybe you shouldn't do this. And she gently nudges you in the right direction, which I think is just great writing. And more importantly, it calls for a great literary conscience. So good on you. In Memes for Mummyji, what I loved is you explore how technology reshapes everyday Indian life. And in effect, it's a collection of your wonderful essays. A lot of them have to do with that. How has social media today changed the texture of our culture, of Indian culture?
Yeah, I mean, in so many ways, right? I mean, if you were to think about it, let me start at the idea of the smartphone or the mobile phone itself, you know, and then I'll come to social media. It's actually an extraordinary thing. I mean, the generation that grew up without a mobile phone and a generation today, I mean, the idea that each individual has a personal connection to the universe. You know, everybody's mobile phone is different, right? We may be using similar apps, but everyone has a unique, it's a fingerprint. It's like a unique way of connecting with the outside world. And it gives you the right to express yourself. If you look at it through human history, the means of broadcast have always been tightly controlled. Always. You never, I mean, if I remember the time that I was growing up, where could I express myself in any public forum? The newspaper carried 3 letters to the editor every day. 3 people could express themselves. Or, you know, you could send a request on Vivid Bharati from Jumri Talaiya, whatever, for a Hindi film song. I mean, that is the extent to which there was interactivity. That was the extent to which our voices could be heard. And now everybody has a personal broadcast channel, right? So what it does at the most fundamental level, what social media has done is created a sense of the individual and the significance of the individual. I am somebody, I am important no matter where I am. The world caters to me. And it goes further when you have a touch screen, right? The touch screen is something where every part of the touch screen leaps to accommodate your slightest whim. So we are training people without wordlessly. Day by day, people are being trained to realize their own significance, their importance. And you can see that in the way we take selfies, right? You go to the Taj Mahal, and you are the monument. The Taj Mahal is a prop, right? I mean, you know, we've completely reversed the relationship between ourselves and the world. You know, that sense of importance, which at one level is empowering, at another level is delusional, and at a third level is also debased, because the other thing it has done, social media has done, is that the slightest thought I have, the least amount of effort that I put into any form of thought, I can put it out there, believing in its greatness, right? And therefore, in a way, it has made us more primal, more primitive, and we see that across the world. The rise of Trump at one level, the rise of the kind of polarization we are seeing is all because, in a way, I would argue that, one of the things that keeps civilization going are small acts of hypocrisy. Right, where we tell each other that actually I hate somebody, or I think they're a bore, but if they ask me how was my talk, and you say it was very nice, it was really enjoyed it. I mean, these are little acts of hypocrisy that keep civilization going. In social media, because of anonymity, because of the fact that it's so easy, we've lost that, right? So the texture of everyday life has become cruder, at one level more honest, at another level vile. So I think there's a whole lot of stuff that I think is happening simultaneously.
So, there are two things, Malini. One is people say, oh, we've reached peak influencer levels. And the other thing is this whole thing about influencer fatigue. And I noticed that, there was a time when people used to put out very polished, curated kind of content, very structured. My question to you is, do you feel that audiences now are tired of that, of polished, structured, curated content? And are they looking for something more authentic? And at the other end of the spectrum, is the creator economy really expanding, or have we reached that peak influencer level?
So I first, actually, you brought such a nostalgic memory to my mind that I have to share it. I don't even know if you remember it, Hrishi, but this is like 1994, okay, in my bedroom in Mayur Vihar. And Hrishi used to have a dial-in radio show. And the only way you could record that is if you had a cassette player. Maybe half the audience has no idea what I'm talking about. But basically, I remember requesting a Paula Abdul song and Hrishi playing it, and we rushing to record the song and save it. And the funny thing is, I had said in this very romantic, if there's a boy out there looking for me, and then some guy had left his phone number from Australia and given his phone number on the show. And so many girls pretending to be Malini had called him. But when I finally called him, he's like, oh, if you're really, you call me next week. And I did, and we became pen pals. And there's such a crazy history to that. But the effort and time it takes is very different. But coming to your question, I think a couple of things have happened. I think that there is definitely fatigue in the influencer. I think it started off kind of, you make it up as you go in your bedroom with whatever equipment you have. Now everyone is selling you all the equipment you need for the perfect, let it be manicured, let it look perfect. But the whole allure of social media was that it looked real and raw. So even the biggest platforms, Meta, or all of them will tell you now that the real raw-looking content performs better, and that's what people are really looking to consume. But I guess I'm saying this out loud now, but don't quote me. The age of the influencer, I feel, is coming to an end. I think if everybody is an influencer, nobody is an influencer. I think that the age of the impactor is coming, and I really feel that an impactor is someone who is knowledgeable in their field. And you can still use social media. I mean, the point of social media was to be able to connect at a scale that's not otherwise humanly possible. You can have and I know this for a fact, you can follow 7,500 people max on Instagram before they say no more. I learned this the hard way. Now I have to unfollow people. It's very awkward. But it's really one of those things where people who have knowledge in a particular vertical or subject are the real impactors. And that's, I think, where it's shifting to. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of the influencers are making the leap into film and television because they're entertainers. But the true influencer, the difference between an impactor and influencer is very simple. An influencer might affect what you buy. An impactor changes how you think.
Interesting.
And over time, I think that people are going to start using social media more mindfully. It's already happening in smaller communities. Instead of doing this endless, mindless brain rot scroll, they're going to stop. And I was just talking to Q backstage. I was saying it's so nice that people still do read, not just can read, So I think that there is a shift coming. There's still going to be that many and more accounts to follow, but I think we're going to be a little more mindful about what we consume.
Very well said. And it's such a wonderful coincidence that Santosh's book talks about this consumption era.
Yeah.
It's a very important aspect of his book. Now, would you say, Santosh, that this whole influencer era has been a reflection of a deeper societal need, the need to be seen?
Yeah, I think it's true. I think it's true on both sides. I think, fundamentally what are influencers? The fact that you had a time when we heard the experts who were authoritative voices. So, you had editorials at one level, you had all film stars at the other level, you had celebrities who were large screen celebrities, distant. And you had brands also that advertise, again, a very kind of an abstract, very abstracted from real life. While you're watching television, you get these, fantasy stories that were coming at you. Fundamentally, what influencers do is to interpret the world. So if I was to speak in commercial terms, celebrities represent the brand, influencers represent the people. Fundamentally, that is the difference, right? Influencers are people like me, telling me about stuff. They are telling me how to buy. They are also telling me how to think about the world. They are telling me, whatever is of interest to them. So essentially, it's a peer community that you create, right? That's what influencers are doing, where you are seeing the voice of people like yourselves. And in that sense, it's a deeply democratic idea. The fact that you want to listen to people who have a shared experience like yours, who do not come from a completely different world, and yet in some areas they have probably thought about it a little more than you have, whether it is makeup at one level, whether it is music, whether it is classical music or art. But the fact that they are in a position and they speak from your vantage point, and they are not on a pedestal, I think is one of the strongest things about the reason why influencers have come into being. And I think it speaks a lot for a society that wants. At one level, it means that every individual has a right, as you said, of being seen. I am somebody, because I have the microphone in my hand, other people can hear me. But at a social and a collective level, it is when society moves from high horses and pedestals to people like us. And I think at a certain level, you can talk about the ills of this era, but at a certain level, one must acknowledge that that's a deep act of democratization.
One of the things that was a logical thing for me to gravitate towards following Malini on social media, apart from the fact that we're friends, is that she was such, and continues to be, such an incredibly well-rounded personality. I mean, and like they say in Hindi, ghat ghat ka pani piya hai. She started off, working as on the internet, on MTV's internet site. Were you a web designer? Were you doing?
So I used to write, my business card said channel head romance and sexuality, and my mother was horrified.
So there you have it. So she was running the web piece for MTV, then she becomes a radio presenter, then she becomes an entrepreneur, now she's an author, and really to me, that is personality. And you've said it, you're very open about this, even in your writing. You say, the internet loves personality, Malini. But here's the elephant in the room. In an era of AI-generated faces, does personality still stand a chance?
I think it stands an even better chance, because the thing that AI does, and just a little crash course, is it just sort of regurgitates and regenerates things that millions and billions of people have said around the world, and it's pattern recognition. So whenever you're using ChatGPT and it's giving you an answer, it's actually not that intelligent. It's actually just recreating answers that it has seen time and time again. Certain words follow certain words, and the ones that follow most often are that. But the true winners at the end of the game will be the ones who have emotion and empathy and high EQ. My best friend is sitting in the audience right here, Rich, and he said something so interesting. We always think of the internet as this, toxic place and this negative place, and the internet is filled with so much negativity. But the internet isn't some alien nation that just showed up, right? It's not like District 9 where these people came and now we have to make do with it. We are the internet, so whatever we have put out there is also us. So it's also on us to clean that up. And similarly, I feel that there's a couple of things, and I'll just give you a little thought to think about. Raise your hand if you use social media. Do you use Instagram? Everyone does, okay? And do you think of yourself, raise your hand if you think of yourself as a good listener and a friendly person. Yeah? Now let me ask you this. When you post something on your own social media, and everyone feels this, right? Do you feel bad sometimes when you post something meaningful and not enough people comment? You feel bad? Raise your hand. And about the people who do comment or like it or leave a message, do you sometimes just click heart or drop an emoji in response? Now think about what you've done differently than real life. As much as we want a meaningful connection online, we don't do the work that it requires. We will, suppose I said something meaningful to you right now and we're having a conversation on stage. In real life, would you, at the end of my long message or comment, say, and walk off? That ends that conversation right there. But we expect emotional depth and meaning and friendship on a medium where we are not willing to give it, even when so many people are fighting and vying for other people's attention. Those 3 people who came and commented or liked, what did we give them back? And I think that's the big mistake that we're making. Whenever I talk to brands or people and they say, oh, I can't make some content, I don't know what to post, I'm like, don't post anything. Go use social media to give love, to acknowledge, to interact. That's where the real dopamine is. It's called the helper's high. And if I urge you that today, if you went home from your social media and stopped refreshing your last post to see how many people didn't come, and went somewhere else or went to those 3 people who commented that you just did this or a heart to and started a conversation, you might end up with a real life friend from from a non-IRL experience.
Nice. You're just reeling in the claps today, aren't you? Nice. Thank you. Thank you for being such an involved audience. We need more of that. Lovely. You know, Santosh, you've written about the democratization of expression, and you've also mentioned it a couple of times in the conversation thus far. Has social media truly democratized creativity? Because at one level, I also see lots of new hierarchies, and I'm going to get Malini's view on this too. So are we seeing true democratization of creativity or simply creating new hierarchies?
I think it's both. I mean, hierarchies are a fact of life, but let's look at creativity. I think there's an absolute surge of creativity. I mean, there's no question about it. The fact that, TikTok doesn't exist now, but now you see that in Reels, but TikTok, actually you saw it in its rawest form. The kind of stuff you saw coming out from everywhere. A village, somebody cooking for 1,000 people, and the person gets hundreds of thousands of followers, just cooking, right, stuff. And even now, in Reels also, you have so many, and there's, for instance, absolutely follow this person, Life of Pooja, I don't know how many follow her. She's this Bengali woman who's married woman in a village, and she is sort of talks about the difficulty of being a woman in a rural setting. Fascinating stuff, and it's fascinating. And plus you have so many different ways, and it's a new art form that I think has come into being. And I think I absolutely believe that it's something that, along with the other things, it has unleashed. It has unleashed hate, it has unleashed vitriol, it has done all of that. And so some of that in creative ways also. But fundamentally it has unshackled expression. Are there hierarchies within that? There is hierarchy. Any structure will create hierarchies. So to my mind, I would not see this as a creative explosion versus hierarchy kind of a question. I think both of them need to be acknowledged for what they are. Yes, creative explosion. Yes, hierarchy. Both of them, I think, have to coexist. But I do certainly think that there has been you look at memes, some such inventive stuff that you have, right? I come from the advertising industry, and we thought that we had we were the monopolists of creating short form, interesting creative work. And I look at it today and I say advertising is dead. Where is creativity coming in from? What are the stuff that we pass to each other? Which is the last time we passed an ad and to anybody else? All of it is coming from people from all over the place who have had no training. They're not called creative, people. They just are creative, and they're doing stuff that which is the reason, like idiots, we are like on Reels going, with a dazed expression on our face, we keep scrolling. Because there is some creativity. There's also dopamine, and there's also the other stuff, but there is creativity, for sure.
So, there's this rise of the micro influencer and the nano influencer. And obviously, that has also changed the influencer economy a little bit. So, Malini, are smaller creators now as powerful as the big names? Because you're seeing a lot of those big names now getting into cinema and, Kusha Kapila and Mostly Sane, we're widening their horizons. Is there an opportunity here now for the micro and the nano influencers?
So I think, and I think you bring up such an interesting point. I think, I think the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. So there's going to be a lot of what people love and love to hate. And I've actually, in my book, unpacked conversations with my haters to say, like, what's the problem? And they're like, this is the only way you'll notice me. And a lot of it comes from that. And a lot of the creepy guys sending weird messages are like 16-year-old boys who are just never equipped to be on the internet. And there's a great movie on Netflix called Social Dilemma. You must watch it to really understand how as humans we're not equipped to deal with so much information. But to come to your question, see, the nano micro influencer, what does that mean? That means, and okay, this is actually another experiment Rich does. I'm going to ask to do something that you normally don't do. But let me first ask you, raise your hand if you think you're an influencer. Okay, now I'd like you to open your Instagram. If you don't remember how many people follow you, open it and look at your Instagram. And if the answer to the question, how many people follow you, is more than 0, you're an influencer. Due credit to Rich on this one. But literally, the point is that you influence people in your circle, whether it's 5 or 10 or 100. We just think of influencers in these much larger, unimaginable numbers. And in my book, I talk about something called unsee the numbers and see the people. The micro-nano influencer probably has more authentic reach and more authentic impact. Because we all know, elephant in the room, the bigger influencers, or any influencer can today spend amount of money and buy a certain number of people from Mexico who are going to follow and like all your posts, So the point is that the nano micro influencer probably has a lot less people following them, but people who are probably going to listen to their opinion or actually be influenced by what they say. I think the bigger problem is this. What is the biggest, most exciting career to have in India? Films, absolutely. And that's where you're seeing the content. It used to be different channels. You won Miss India, you became a Bollywood star, right? You did a reality show, eventually you got a TV show, you became a Bollywood star. You don't really look like Shah Rukh, you look like Shah Rukh adjacent, you got an OTT show. So that's kind of the way that it works. And now the influencer pathway is the next way to do that. But what else are we as an audience giving this much love and attention to? There's a rule I made on Miss Malini years ago. We did airport spotting, celebrity spotting, red carpet spotting. We never did funeral spotting. I found that horrifying. But let's be honest, how many people in this room will watch who came to whose funeral? So we're part of the problem. We can make as many comments as we like about what the influencers are doing, but what are we really consuming? And unfortunately, there is no pathway for a content creator who is showing like Life of Pooja, and I follow her too, it's incredible. What is her end goal? Like, where will she get from there? She might get a character, actor role in a film, and that's the holy grail for her. Where are the opportunities for creators of note who are doing something really fantastic and different that we will give enough precedence to or value to, that it becomes an exciting proposition? So we are part of the problem.
I was just thinking of you this morning, Malini, because Malini and Zayed Khan are very dear friends. I've met him socially at many of your social engagements. And you were talking about funeral spotting, and he's just had a loss, and there's so many videos there of that funeral. And I'm like, is the family getting any privacy?
And unfortunately, people say as a celebrity, that's what you've signed up for. But there's a great documentary that Al Jazeera did on the paparazzi. And as much as we blame the paparazzi, it's also not their fault. It's the pictures that sell. The magazine that buys the picture, whether it's in a magazine or social media, because you're spotting, if there weren't people consuming it, they wouldn't be able to sell it. So it's also the voyeuristic nature of the human mind that likes to watch people locked up in a house on Big Boss or Big Brother that are part of the problem. But I think that change can come. This is not a doom, woe is society kind of message at all. I mean, hopefully AI Atlas is going to land and Miss Universe contest is going to change forever. But I think that there is something to note and think and take back with you today is as much as you might, say, oh, I hate what an XYZ creator is doing, or this is so mindless, how much mileage and weight are you giving it? Or how much doom scroll are you giving it? Are you mindfully consuming content just the way you think about what you put in your body? Are you thinking about what you put in your brain when you're watching social media?
Santosh, in India, more than a lot of countries, we were very mindful about our public self and our private self. And my question to you, and this segues, what Malini said just segues very beautifully into it. Do you think social media has blurred the lines between the public and the private self in irreversible ways?
I think that would be fair to say. I think it would be fair to say on the whole that that's what has happened. I think the idea of, I think one of the reasons why I do believe that, the AI threat is actually more significant than anything else is that, look at it today. Today it's almost like interiority, the experiences that we have inside that we feel, when you go and you're bowled over by, you go to the hills and you see a majestic sight, or the feeling that you get of something of larger than yourself, something deep. What we are trying to do is even all of those feelings, either all our feelings happen on the internet, which means emotion becomes data as soon as emotion is experienced, because it is on the internet. So emotion is by definition data. Or we document it as such. So even if it doesn't happen on the internet, something happens in real life, and the first thing we do is to take that and put that on the internet, which means we are training AI to simulate human experience, to actually blur. We are leaving nothing for ourselves. More and more, as we put stuff on the internet, the less we leave for ourselves. There is nothing within. Everything is exteriorized. Right? When that happens, tomorrow for an AI, and as far as regurgitation goes or remixing goes, most creativity, as many people have argued, are acts of recombination. So, it's not, there's nothing really truly original in the world, right? You're picking up stuff, and here you have a large language model which does the same. So, I do believe that there is a real challenge. I do believe that there's a real challenge because of the fact that today human beings, if you do not keep the idea of a private self, if you say that some things cannot be exteriorized, unless you do that, if everything you're going to talk about, you use AI as a therapist, which means the deepest stuff that you have, the deepest problems that you have, you now confide. You are data. That is all you are. And so you keep feeding it data about yourself, it becomes smarter and smarter and smarter, till eventually it does not have a need for you. And in a sense, we are writing ourselves off, and we are writing ourselves out of the script deliberately, bit by bit by bit.
There's a theory that we're already in the Matrix.
Yes, absolutely.
I have these vivid visuals of the Matrix flashing across my mind. But
The
Malini,
question is, would you want to wake up from it?
you've been very candid in Under the Influence, which is your book. And really, you should pick it up. She also talks about how she's learned the hard way that you should be and say things on the internet that you really mean. And it's not a fictional self that you're putting out there. Would you say this to another person? If you say, yes, I would say this to another person, then put it out on social media, which I think is very valid advice. But now, since you've been so candid, it's a bit of a personal question. Does being real, quote unquote, real online come at a personal cost, Malini? There's privacy, there's vulnerability, there's burnout, all those issues that people have to deal with.
I 100% admit I'm addicted to my phone. It's definitely a problem because I feel I used to justify it to myself by saying that, hey, I've committed to a virtual reality, quote unquote, where I have to be present because I wouldn't disappear from real life for 3 days on end, so I can't digitally detox. I detox by playing more games or following mindful accounts. But I think that there's two parts to this. Who runs a Bollywood blog that has a rule that says you can't write anything you can't say to someone's face? That means 85% of the gossip I hear I would never write, right? And I made that rule for a couple of reasons. And maybe this will strike a chord with you. What happens is that there are some rules or protocols that we follow, and I've noticed even my friends, if you hand a child a gift, the parents will quickly say, "Did you say thank you?" Cover your mouth when you sneeze. But for some reason, all of these social niceties did not translate to the internet. And again, I'll make you think about this from a human, like a real life case. Think about the fact that if you were in a real life scenario and you didn't know your neighbors and somebody was having a party and they had invited a whole bunch of people, would you barge into their house, talk to no one, introduce yourself to no one, and start putting up pictures of yourself everywhere and leave? Probably not. But so many people do that in other people's comments, uninvited, right? Would you, as a guy, I'm going to ask, go up to a girl on the street and drop your pants? I get a fair amount of dick pics that do that in my DMs, and I can't unsee that, so why should I ignore that? So I think the crazy thing is that we treated the internet and social media as this game and not real. And I think COVID and all of that showed us how real virtual reality can be. I think the problem with living your life online is everyone has something to say and comment on, and to the extent where people do say, "Malini, you're always on your phone," and I am always on my phone. And I do sometimes feel like I'm not authentically living my life in real life, because it's created this weird sort of experience where I'm like, it's not enough that I'm only here in a room of 3 people. I've committed to being everywhere all at once, all the time. And I can't honestly say whether I claim to say that the reason I can't do it is for other people or that I feel like I'm missing out. Jury's out on that.
There's so much being said now about algorithms, Santosh, that really define what we're seeing, what we're thinking, what we're feeling. I'd like you to comment on that. Are we now living in algorithmic societies? Is the algo the all-important one?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Jonathan Haidt has this book out. I think it's The Age of Anxiety, if I remember, or The Anxious Generation. Yeah. I think it fundamentally, he talks about this example of how particularly young sort of mental health issues in the US climbed after 2012 in a dramatic way. And particularly young women, their anxiety issues. And it was linked to a change that was made on social media where you could repost something to a larger audience, which means a simple change in the algorithm, which put you in the crosshairs of everybody else in a sense. It gave you reach beyond your immediate, so from just your immediate circle, it allowed you to become a public figure in some senses and allowed the public to have judgment about you, which means you are now at the mercy of anybody who felt that they could comment on your picture or whatever you put up. Now, imagine the profound difference that is made through one simple algorithmic change. And you realize how much we are at the mercy. A small, what seems to be a tiny change in a feature changes the world in some senses, right? And I think this is the power of technology is that its most sort of insidious effects happen invisibly. They appear to be inconsequential. What difference does it make? You had to repost. I mean, it's a little thing. It's a little widget that you've got. It's meaningless. And yet it has such profound. So I think, and algorithmically what is happening is because it chases, the algorithm is trying to cater to us and we are the center of the universe. It is fashioning everything in our likeness. So we are seeing only mirror images of ourselves. So it's like an infinite hall of mirrors where we are seeing just these, and everything is catered, and which means that our field of vision is narrowing. Because we are not actually, the algorithm is saying, I know what you like, but it doesn't know what I want, anything new that I want to do. It tells you, I know. So that's the reason why half the time, if you've gone to a site and bought something, that site keeps coming. I said, I've already bought the goddamn thing, right? Why are you coming back to me? Because that's what it understands, that this is what you like. So I think that's what is happening in an algorithmic world. The power that is exercised invisibly on our actions, on our thinking, is something that we cannot fathom. And unlike earlier technologies and unlike other influences, where we know that we are being influenced, here we don't even know that we are being influenced and we are being transformed. And I think that is really, really I think something that is dangerous and something that we are living through right now.
You know, I have to share something that I did a lot of research for this Under the Influence book. And there's a podcast I highly recommend. It's called The Secret History of the Future.
Yeah.
And it says that if you look back enough, far back enough into the past, you can predict the future. And there's a great episode on an anthropologist who went to Papua New Guinea and did this crazy exercise that has stayed with me. Is that they went to a village in Papua New Guinea where they had not ever, had technology, phones. They'd never even seen a mirror. And they did this little experiment there where this anthropologist took a Polaroid camera and took pictures of people. And then it took people a while to understand what was going on because they pointed at this hair and the picture, pointed at the lips and the picture and the nose, and then this aha moment happened and there was instant self-dissociation that occurred. Now, what do you think the people of this village in Papua New Guinea did with these Polaroid pictures? Anybody want to hazard a guess? Kept it. And how? They started to wear them on their foreheads. And when they would meet each other, they would first look at the picture and then meet the person. And if you think about now your circle of friends and family, beyond the ones you see every day in your house, how many people in your circle do you see more often on social media than in real life? And what version of them do you know now?
What are your non-negotiables when it comes to mental health and digital well-being as a creator?
I have absolutely no boundaries. So I have what I call work-life integration and not work-life balance, because I was told one day, if you love what you do, then you'll never work a day in your life. I didn't realize that the opposite is also true.
Interesting. I'm just wondering, if you look at it, these are early days.
Right, absolutely.
And you write about that in the book. You
Right.
say we've been, 15 years into this online scheme of things. We're still figuring out how to live life online. But it's just that we've made such rapid strides. What might digital maturity look like for a society like ours, Santosh? Is my question to you.
Okay, let me, nobody knows is the answer in brief, but let me sort of elaborate that. So if I think about technology, and just bear with me a little bit. If I think about, you talked about going back to the past enough to be able to predict the future in some form. If I was to attempt the simplest definition of technology going back in time, I would say that the technology arises from the fact that we have a very powerful mind trapped in an inept body. Our mind can imagine multiple realities simultaneously. We can travel anywhere. We can imagine the stars. It's capable of fantastic. Your body is a pathetically inept machine, right? It is pathetic. It can walk at a very small thing. It can barely lift anything. So fundamentally, technology as it began was the overflow from the mind to the body, right? It's the mind saying, okay, you little pathetic little creature, let me help you out. I'll help you out. I'll tell you how to make tools. I will tell you how to use fire. So so if you look at technology fundamentally in its inception, it's the mind's contribution to the body. Physical constraints in the world, one by one, time, distance, all of it bridging, creating engines so that things move by themselves. So the mind. Then comes a time when the mind says, let me help the mind itself. Can I multiply the mind? And so the computer is an exercise in the mind multiplying itself. And then the mind says, can I connect with other minds and multiply? Then what is happening is that now, just like technology outsourced the body, see, the fact of the matter is that we've outsourced bodily functions to the point where our bodies have become useless, right? We have to take our body for a walk. That's actually what we are doing. When I say go for a walk, what we are doing is we are actually, because this is rotting or out of disuse. So we work out because we don't do work, right? Which we're literally doing ridiculous things like lifting weights. Who in the world wants to do that, right? If you just if you were 200 years ago, and if you said people are lifting weights in order to build their body or to keep the body moving, they would think you were nuts, right? So I'm just saying, so now we are outsourcing the mind, right? And that's what is happening. That's what we are, so when we talk about the matrix, it's actually not a distant kind of a factor. Today, with robotics, we are talking about the fact that we are outsourcing all work. With AI, we are outsourcing all mental labor. So here we are coming to a point where I think just globally, what is happening is that more and more we are becoming redundant. We are making ourselves redundant. And that is what it is actually, we are racing towards irrelevance, which is, and we are doing bit by bit in a way that so eventually it's always the great promises that, oh, we will have time to do all the fun stuff, right? But the fact is even the fun stuff today is being done by AI. So I think it's a grim kind of a prognosis for the future, but I think it's inevitable.
So much for digital maturity. Okay, we've got to move to audience questions. So start thinking of your questions. Last one to Malini. If you were starting Miss Malini in 2025, what would you do differently?
First of all, I apologize. I was very young when it all began. I thought I was just doing something for fun. I think that actually what I wouldn't do that much differently. I think my evolution of where I took things and how I let things impact me would be different. So let me just take you back 15 years when I started. 2008, May 5th. I still remember writing my first blog, www.wordpress.missmalini.com, $8 domain. And I remember putting up pieces of content and feeling so happy that I was my own editor, my own videographer, my own writer, and I'd put up a piece of content and feel thrilled. And someone coming to leave a comment was just a delicious bonus that, oh wow, in these billions of pages, someone decided to come and say something. And there was no public judgment or, decision on whether or not what I've put up is worth it or even worth visiting. It was good enough for me that I created something and I felt good. And just to zoom out for a second, we're all here for a short period of time unless they crack this longevity thing. I mean, we're just going to be here for like 80, 100, 110, 20 years, whatever. We take it all so seriously. And we are not going to go with anything, as every Bollywood movie tells you, you go alone, you come alone. But we take it all so damn seriously. And what will you really look back at that post you agonized over that didn't get enough comments at the end of it all? What reel is going to play in your head as a flashback to your life? And the crazy thing that's happened to me recently is now when I look at my content, I enjoy my life more in hindsight in that 30-second reel. Sounds ominous, but at that point I'm not feeling cold, I'm not waiting around to make the shoot happen. And it's really what, Santosh has said, that maybe I've disassociated from having to live in reality. But I think what I would do differently is I would just enjoy every delicious moment and live in the now. I always used to think being happy is having something to look forward to, whether it was a follower count or an experience or something. But the best advice I can give you is don't wish time away and remember that forever is made up of a series of nows. This moment will never come back.
Nice. All right, please raise your hand and we'll roll a mic to you. This lady here in the second row, please, if you could just... If you could direct your question to Santosh or Malini, start with that and then ask.
Yes, hi. So my question is for Ms. Malini. Even I'd like to ask you, in today's generation of cancel culture, how is it that you live on the other side and give your opinion with the fear of being cancelled, because what's right for you can be wrong for somebody else? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think the interesting thing is, I talk to my colleagues about this a lot. I think that cancel culture should be changed to conversation culture. But the truth is, now people who are cancelled are not as afraid of being cancelled because everybody's being constantly cancelled over something. And if you really see, when you look at, and I've written various articles on the Me Too movement and stuff, and people who are cancelled are right back up on stage judging reality shows. So I think that there is not as much fear. I don't think cancel culture is fair, but I think that it is a lot less impactful than it used to be. The way it's kind of like a witch hunt in a sense.
Please introduce yourself. The gentleman in the fifth row. Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dhaval Shah. I'm visiting from the Silicon Valley on vacation. And I had the question directed to Santosh. So you painted this picture of a certain picture, right? That there'll be all this difficulty going forward. But if you break it up into two broad segments, one is social media and then one is AI. So I work in AI actually since last 7-8 years. Luckily, I studied under the father of AI, John McCarthy at Stanford. So AI also is trying to take care of all the stuff that is redundant in your life, right? Automating stuff. So it frees up time for your mind to focus on what you like to do. If you get a robo at home doing all your mundane work that you do every day, right? If it saves you that time, it's giving you time back. And then that allows you to do whatever you want. So what's your perspective on that? And of course, Malini can share her perspective.
Yeah. I think increasingly the question is going to be, the fact that this is a fantasy in some ways that technology has always told us, right? Already we were supposed to have lots of spare time. This is already, if you go back in 1950 and say, what will the world be like in 2025? All future imaginations, everything will be automated, and the fact is that we should have free time. What has happened is what, like Malini said, that, if you do what you love, then, you'll never have to work again. The problem is that you work all the time, right? So I'm just saying, so therefore, there is a long history of people believing this and this not happening. That is one. The other is that what is unmediated by technology today? What parts of our life are unmediated by technology? More and more and more we find that even when we travel, we are more interested in what we are going to put on Instagram. Our travel planning is done through AI, right? So the fact of the matter is that the idea that we have this mysterious amount of stuff that we really want to do, right, which we will be able to do, to my mind, it is a myth. The other thing is that the very real problem is, where are we going to get the money? What is going to happen to employment? Right? It's not a question that we have an answer to currently. We are talking about job losses that can happen at scale. So again, the question of saying that, this idea of having that surplus time also means that we must have surplus means. And it's by no means clear as to what is the pathway to that. Nobody has an answer for that today. Everybody has vague kind of thoughts that, new kinds of jobs will emerge. But as of now, at scale, if you are going to robotize production, where are you going to get that kind of numbers of employment? How are you going to substitute those numbers? We don't have an answer to that. So I do think that, of course, it's possible to take a more positive view of AI. And there are enough people who argue that, and it may well be true. But as of now, there is no clear pathway to that.
I think this is one thing that I add to that is I'm that generation X because I'm born in 1977. So I know life before cell phone. I mean, I moved to Bombay with an alphanumeric pager, if you even know what that is. It was very cool in the day. But the idea that I have more, time and I have so much access and ability now, but I wonder if I feel like I had more time then because, I would make plans with a friend and I would go meet them and there was no FOMO of should I wait for a better plan or is somebody else doing something better than me? And that whole comparison culture, I think, kind of stuff. If you don't, it's, that ignorance is bliss. I miss that a little bit.
Nice. Yes, please.
So Santosh sir, I want
Just
your point.
your name and then you can.
My name is Pawan. The question is about how do you see it in the light of how capital and commerce is flowing into technology and all these things that you're talking about. So if you can put it under the lens of commerce and how capital is driving this, or is it the other way around? The society is leading and that is why capital is following, or it's the other way around?
No, I think capital is driving it. I think clearly, we are getting to the point where, we are becoming primarily a consumer society. So if you would look at where the energy was, how you defined yourself. Let's look at how we define ourselves today. Earlier, we defined ourselves by how we made money. Today, we define ourselves by how we spend money. Fundamental difference.
So true.
Right? When that change happens, and to my mind, actually, when we talk about influencers, etc., what is an influencer? Influencer is a professional consumer. They are experts in consumption. They tell us how to, and one of the biggest rising professions in the world is the profession of consumption. Because these are the experts in consumption. They make money telling people how they unwrap boxes and they make money. Right? So I'm just saying that's where is the push coming from? It is coming from capital, right? And so we are getting into that area, right, where we are going to become more and more kind of, where consumption becomes more and more defining of who we are. So, and I think that is led, and AI, if you were to look at it also, is big capital. So we have, in fact, and the craziest part is that all future development is now in the hand of the private sector. Right? There is no governments, by the time governments comprehend technology, technology moves on. So right now we are being led entirely by capital, which has no idea of what it is doing and how it is going to recoup the money. All of it is a giant crapshoot. In a sense, they don't know. They're going where the technology takes them. But what we do know, the internet promised freedom and democratization, and it was divided up into 4 people. 4 people have divided up the entire internet into and taken it over. So that's how the reality of the internet has been, and that's what we are seeing in AI even now.
I do love that the Louvre password is a Louvre.
Ma'am, yes.
Hi, good evening. My question is to Mr. Desai and of course to Malini ma'am also. I'm Rupashri. So I run a small company called Unicorn Author Lab and I help people to become authors there. I myself am an author. My more than a question, this is a concern. Having people like you on board today, I would love to get it answered. So we are born in the era where the Hindus ran 3 pages of editorial, reading from there to big articles to now short post to shortest post to now the reels of less than 90 seconds. And our younger generation is consuming it so well. For them, it's like, obsolete. Like if I talk about Hindu and the editorial, they have never seen that. I'm today accompanying my daughter who's a teenager. She's just turned teenager. So how can we now, that is my purpose where I help young children to become authors, where I moving back them to articulate, express. So what is your take on that? How can we get them back to, again from 90-second reel to the reading? Of course, reading parents are promoting, but I still feel it's not enough because the influencer, what you said is, we are under influence. And how can we get it back? I just want to get it.
See, I think it's actually a complex question. It's not, I would not characterize it as simple that, we had attention span which was larger and now it has shrunk and that's a problem. The truth is our attention spans have been shrinking for a long time. The average sentence, I don't remember the exact numbers, the English language average sentence, if you go back a few years, was I think 39 words. Today the average sentence became 26 words. Today it is shrinking further. This has been happening through time. The average speech that politicians gave, it was very common to sit through 3-hour speeches, right? Impossible to think of that now, right? So through time, this has been happening. What has happened now is that there is an acceleration that has happened and it has become a mass kind of a phenomenon. But also what happens with this is that old forms of intelligence die, but new forms of intelligence are born. So you have the ability to multitask. Now we do 3 things simultaneously, right? We are watching television, we are on our phone, and we are eating something simultaneously. We never do one thing anymore, right? So now you may say that is divided attention, you may say that is a new form of intelligence, right? So I do think, bottom line, I don't think we can go back. I don't think we can go back simply because while the internet also allows, for deep text, I mean, there are people who, in fact, studies have said that actual reading in terms of number of words has in many cases gone up rather than down. Because there is a lot of text material, which of course is getting squeezed out now. So I'm just saying it's a complex question. It is not a simple thing like, an old form of intelligence being replaced by a new form of shallowness alone, although that is happening. And I don't think it is possible to say, how do we take them back? That ain't happening.
I think you also have to be creative. Like, for example, I built my whole career online. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for that. But you can be creative about it. Like, I have a lot of friends who also study how to educate the new generation. And I think it's really interesting because they did a little exercise where they said, okay, how do we teach Gen Alpha and Beta about Gandhi? So they said, let's give them a challenge to create a social media campaign for the Gandhi March, for the Salt March. And what would that look like? And in that process, you actually can learn a lot. And I think it's incredible because if you see so many of my friends and their kids, we always, our parents, every generation has said, I don't understand the next generation. How will they get by? They get by. And that's also the process of evolution.
Okay, we have to clear the auditorium at 9:15. So last 2 questions, the lady there,
Hi.
and that can be followed up by the lady there. So ma'am, you can introduce yourself and ask.
Yes, hi, I'm Rutu. Santosh, this is a question for you. So I know this is a very dystopian future that you've painted for us, and I just wanted to, and following directly from your question, Malini, on the generational aspect of it, right? Because I also do feel that social media is, it's very exciting for Gen Xers because it's new. but it is entirely different for the Gen Alphas or for that matter, the Gen Zs. So I wanted to get your perspective on, what does it really mean when we talk about this? How does it change generationally? Because I am a Gen Xer, I have kids who are Gen Zs and one Gen Z, one Gen Alpha, and I see a very different behavior of how they consume social media and how they act on it versus how my generation does. So I wanted your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I think, say for my generation, where I think I just about squeeze into Gen X. So I don't think I'm quite a baby boomer. So, but I think that the social media is always something external to you, right? It is something that you put yourself on. It is it's like putting your photograph on an old photo album. Yeah, it's a separate act. You are separate, that is separate. You are putting in, something of yourself on it. There's always that distance. So whereas that is not the case. As you go down the generations, it is the air that you breathe, it is who you are located in it. So I find it fascinating, that we use the word offline. So the default is online. So it's almost like reality is the exception. Right? Online is the reality and offline. So you have to switch something off, in order to live, right? So to my mind, that is really at a conceptual level. I think the difference is the fact that is pretty much. I think if you look at identity today, also, I think the younger generations are creating identity out of digital pixels. Every action on social media is a pixel in their identity, right? That's the action, and pixel by pixel, and that responsibility for, so unlike an older generation which is born somebody, right? More and more younger generation is not born anybody. They become somebody through acts of digital consumption, of digital self-presentation. They become somebody, and that responsibility is an onerous responsibility. It is exciting, but it's terrifying. And I think that's what you're seeing. You see mental health issues that you're seeing that are cascading because of the fact that responsibility, and you don't have any guide maps, there are no rule books. That is a world that you inhabit where you have to make yourself from scratch. And I think that's difficult as hell.
Last one for the day, ma'am. Yes.
Hi, this is Shampi, and my question is for Santosh as well as Malini. And Santosh, I loved your book, Mother Pious Lady. Hilarious that was. Okay, my question is, you come from an advertising background. Now, the only advertisement that I am forced to see is Spotify because I don't have a subscription of it, okay? Rest, I skip everything. So from an advertisement point of view, do you think the charm of advertising is lost somewhere and people don't want to watch product because any which ways the influencers are selling us all the product? And we have hordes of direct-to-consumer brands coming up. So do you think that charm is lost? And to Malini, I wanted to ask, psychologically, are human beings unleashing their uglier side more easily and on an everyday basis on internet that was kind of not available say a few years back because of the lack of platforms that we have now, and psychology for some reason has enough research material through us because we live on internet, so like almost every day all the time.
Yeah, so no, I think advertising has lost its charm without question, and there is no question about it, it has lost its charm. But let's also look at what was advertising. Advertising was money forcing your way into your consciousness when you wanted to do something else. So I want to watch a TV program which I'm interested in, so I intrude into your bedroom and say, watch me instead. The price of being interested in something was advertising. That is the price you paid for being interested in something else, right? So that's how advertising was. And in order to lessen the pain, advertising became entertaining. So that, it was storytelling, it's interesting, it's telling you fantasies, which is how, but nobody really wants advertising. There is no demand for advertising, right? So the moment it became voluntary, I will see what I want to see, not what you make me want see. Advertising was always going to face the challenge, and it has faced the challenge because now, why should I must be daft if I want to see advertising, in my spare time. I want to see something that adds value to my life, and I think what influencers are doing is that they are actually telling you little stories. The product is being placed in people's lives in a way that makes sense to them. And so I think it is entirely deserved. in a discretionary world where people have the right to do what they like, absolutely they will not want to see advertising. And I think, and I think advertising had its time, that time is gone.
I think it's also, so to answer your question on, are we our worst selves online? Absolutely. But I also think we're our most vulnerable selves. And I think there's a little bit of both. I think that the interesting thing that happened is that because there's no accountability and everyone has access and free reign, not everyone, like, it's just as simple as in your family, when you go down to play, they'd say, okay, who can you play with in the building? You would not probably be allowed to cross the street and play with random strangers, right? But now, everybody is allowed to come play in your head, in your comments, online. So that filter is gone. But I think it's really important to also remember and think about what are we letting and who are we letting impact us and influence us. It's also a little bit of thinking about that person who's coming and being their worst self very rarely has anything to do with you. So it's usually their great grief or inner child who didn't get enough love, who's behaving a certain way with you. But the ones that should matter and the opinions that should matter are the ones that you would actually spend time with in real life. And that has to be a personal filter that we apply, because you can't blame, again, the internet and everyone having access to it. There is no internet society or governance per se, that is going to take care of that for you. You have to do that self-check for yourself, for your family, for younger siblings. So for the longest time, and I'll give you a real life example, I remember living in Delhi. This is like 35 years ago, when I used to hitchhike to college. I know it sounds like an insane thing to do, but somehow I made it through alive. But the other thing is I went, and I described this in detail for a specific reason. I went to watch a matinee show of a movie in Noida with my mother, wearing a mustard salwar kameez, glasses and oily hair, because I was going with my mother, so who cares what I was wearing. But some guy came up and put his hand on my breast, and my mother said, "Rehne do, don't make a scene, let's just go." This is years ago, and I let it go at that point. Now, if something like that happened, we would not let it go. We would smack the hell out of that guy, right? But what are we doing on the internet? Right now, if someone says something, everyone says, ignore it, let it go. They just want attention. But we are making the same mistake. Tomorrow, this person who's sending you a dick pic or being cruel or being mean is not being checked, not just by you, and reporting it to the platform has done absolutely nothing for anyone ever, okay? So it's important, and I would really call out to the men in the audience here, and all the women as well, when you see someone being bullied online, don't just sit and watch the show. Say something. This is a real case example of me. When someone had trolled me, all my friends got up and said something to him. And I think it's really important that we don't sit around and watch like you would watch someone being harassed on the street. It's the equivalent, and not saying anything and not intervening. So we have to start looking at our digital society and our virtual reality like our neighborhood, just like we don't litter or hope not to in our streets, and we don't let crime pass by or abuse slide in real life. We should not let it slide online, and you will see a decline in toxic behavior because they're usually cowards.
That's great advice. Well, that's all we have time for. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, because I know it's the last session of the day. There are lots of weary, tired eyes, feet. But you
are going to go home and scroll.
But thank you for staying back. We really, really appreciate it.